Welcome in, one and all, to Everything Under the Sun Belt, a college football podcast. I'm Brady Michael alongside
Easton John, man.
And, well, everything here to us is new, so, welcome to Everything Under the Sun Belt. The segments that we're going to have on this show, we're going to look back at Week 2 games around the Sun Belt, some that were a lot more interesting than others. We're also going to preview some of the Week 3 games, including some lines. And then at the end of the show, we're always going to have a random opinion-based thing. And I thought about maybe doing a wheel for that, but then you would not be able to research stuff before the show.
Yeah.
It would really be putting us on the spot for that. And so I believe what we're doing this week is we're predicting the conference championship.
Yes, sir, we are, man. And Brady, I gotta say, though, that intro hyped me up, man, for some Sun Belt football.
I know, it's the Fun Belt. We're trying to bring it back, although the fun kind of lacking around Jonesboro, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Man, don't get me started.
If you want to follow us personally on Instagram, you can follow me at Brady_Michael with Michael spelled Michael, replace the I with a 1, and on X over at bmichael with Michael the same way.
And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Easton.John_, that's EASTON and .JOHN.
Forgot to start the timer, so we're off to a hot start here. So we'll go ahead and run down some of the Week 2 reviews, and we'll start with the reason we're all here. And that is Memphis beating Arkansas State 37-3. And you look at Seth Hennigan, he had himself a game. 239 pass yards, threw for 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And in the first 2 games, the Red Wolves have been outscored 100-3, with Dominic Zavada being the only guy supplying any points.
We put points on the board, Brady.
And that's what matters.
Put points on the board this week. You know, we didn't do so hot. Yeah, applause. So, yeah, against Oklahoma, we didn't score.
A lot of issues in that game, especially offensively. Receivers were dropping passes, not to get specific. But
yeah, I know. And just, oh man, was it frustrating to watch this Memphis game. I mean, Arkansas State's defense did phenomenal in the first quarter.
They certainly
held
did.
them to 3 points. But then once the second quarter came around, you could tell that the defense was getting gassed because the offense was out there. They were doing it, and they were out there for a minute. Defense comes back. You got to give it time.
It got to a point where Shrout was taking a lot of deep shots that didn't equate to anything, and it was really quick 3 and outs. The defensive line started taking injuries despite holding up early, and that ended up being the downfall. And Memphis just ran away with that game in the second half.
Yep, but the only positive, though, at the end of the game, we got a glimpse of Jackson Daly coming into the game.
And I'm thankful about that. And another one is Jaquez at running back. Out of Fordyce, I got to watch him in high school, and I think he's the real deal. And I like that he's on kick return as well.
He has a chance. We need to look at Tennessee and what they've done. They built their team around Derrick Henry. What if we just did that with Jaquez Cross? He is a great running back, dude. He averaged 6 yards per carry.
On what, 9 carries?
On 9 carries.
Yep.
Give him the football. Develop an RPO scheme. Butch Jones has got to develop something new because it's old and it shows in these first 2 weeks.
And Jackson Daly would fit that system a lot better.
He's a lot more mobile than Shrout. So
we'll go ahead and shift gears here. So looking at some other games around the conference, Florida State, after taking it to LSU, they took it to Frank Gore Jr. and Southern Miss 66-13. You had the quarterback for Southern Miss, Billy Wiles, and then Frank Gore Jr. They only combined for 172 offensive yards.
Right.
Trey Benson for Florida State had 3 touchdowns on only 9 carries. He didn't stay in the game, but for a half, I believe.
I mean, Florida State's number 4 for a reason.
I think they could be better.
They could. We'll have to see in the weeks to come. But, I think Southern Miss will come back. Frank Gore Jr. is a dog of a running back. Yep. He knows how. You saw it last year. Southern Miss has developed that team around him, and so I can't wait to see what he does this year.
You want to take us down to the next game? We got Troy and Kansas State.
Kansas State, man. I got a lot of friends that go to K-State, and they were very excited about pounding on Troy.
And I didn't expect it at all because I think Troy's a really respectable team.
Yes, they are.
And Kansas State just put the foot on the throat early.
Won the Sun Belt last year. K-State, they lost a lot of good players last year, but it seems like they've developed a lot this year, and I like to see what K State's doing. But Troy, man, it was odd. I mean, they were what was the score? It was 21-10 at half,
Yep.
and I thought Troy was gonna, nick away at that lead, and then they just lost it in the second half, only scoring 3 points.
Yep,
So
a lot of respect to Will Howard, Kansas State's quarterback. He had
mhm,
5 total touchdowns in that game.
right.
Then you had an FCS team, Southeast Louisiana. They took the bullet to South Alabama 35-17. Colin Lacey had a really good season at wide receiver for the Jags last year, and he had 8 catches, 139 yards, and a touchdown. And then maybe one of the best names in the Sun Belt, Yam Banks,
Yeah,
came up with an
thanks.
interception. And he's an NFL draft prospect, so keep an eye out on him when he makes his way. I
Hmm.
believe we go down to South Alabama this year.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
And
do.
then next up, another FCS FBS matchup: Louisiana Monroe against Lamar.
I mean, ULM is starting off hot, 2-0, but there are little sisters over there in ULM. Arkansas State, we beat them 12 times in a row, maybe even 15. It's a lot. It's in double digits. So it's good for Monroe. Good for
Yeah,
Monroe.
let's say they did lose their quarterback to the transfer portal, and he is, I believe, I don't know which team he transferred to, but he's not the starter. I
Mm-mm.
know that for a fact. So,
Hmm.
when that happens, it's pretty awful. ULM, 285 rush yards in that game. And then move down. Georgia State and UConn, a game that I thought might be a lot closer than it turned out. Georgia State rolled them 35-14. Darren Granger is a problem.
Yes.
You want to talk about multifaceted RPO quarterback? 144 pass yards doesn't sound impressive, but on the ground, 142. And then defensively held UConn to 50
Mhm.
rush yards.
I have a point. Okay.
Okay.
I wish people would talk about this kid. I mean,
Granger?
Granger, yes. 144 passing yards with almost the same amount of rushing yards. I mean, this guy is a problem. You're gonna be like, is he gonna run? Is he gonna throw it? I mean, he's dual threat.
He's
You
a very
know,
accurate dual threat on top of that.
exactly. And when he runs the ball, he runs with authority, and he knows what spots to pick whenever the offensive line creates holes for him. So,
We got a couple more games to roll down before we really get in depth on some of these. Coastal and Jacksonville State. Coastal ended up beating them at home 30-16. Jacksonville State, one of the new FBS teams, I thought they had a pretty good chance going into the game, but Grayson McCall,
hmm,
what, 3-time
yeah,
Sun Belt Conference Player of
yes,
the Year,
yeah.
probably going to be 4. I don't know.
Seriously.
I don't know. 268 pass yards and a touchdown
Yeah,
might not do it.
Coastal. That game was just disgusting. I don't know. They weren't all there. They weren't there that game. So let's see what happens next week. Because I mean, that was just ugly.
Jacksonville State has been in ugly games this year,
Mhm,
especially if you watched week 0 against
mhm.
UTEP.
Yeah.
That game
Yes.
was just tragic.
Yes, it
And
was.
so they've caused some problems. Maybe it's just the curse of the Gamecocks. And then Georgia Southern, they played UAB in what I think is a rivalry game.
Is
And
it?
Georgia Southern, if you remember in the past, they did run the triple option, and now they have Clay Helton. And so they do pass the ball now.
Hmm.
And a matter of fact, Davis Brin, he's a Tulsa transfer, had 318 pass yards in that game. I believe they almost eclipsed 50 pass attempts too. And he was a replacement for Kyle Van Treese, who had a great season a year ago.
Hmm.
And then UAB, Jacob Zeno, the Baylor transfer, I believe, is where
Yes,
he's
Baylor.
from. He had 385 pass yards, one upped him, and
Hmm.
somehow this game wasn't even closer than what it was, just a
This
shootout.
Yes, this game was offense, offense, offense. But then you have Watson Trent, or I mean, he's getting 14 tackles, but I think this game screams offense, 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 no defense. So that's what the Sun Belt is, to be honest with you.
And that's what's expected out of
Yeah,
it.
right.
And continuing on with nothing but offense,
Hmm.
App State took North Carolina to the wire over in Tar Heel territory.
Yeah.
Double overtime, 40-34 loss for App State. And App State having to roll out Chase Bryce, he's gone. Now they have this new kid on the block, Joey Aguilar,
Hmm.
I believe a junior college transfer, 275 pass yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't remember what his debut showing was, but I don't even think he started
No,
in
he
game
didn't.
1.
No, and I this game was good last year, and it's great again this
Yeah, they
year.
didn't
Like,
even get close to the amount of points they scored
yeah,
last year. They set a record for points in the fourth
yes,
quarter.
yeah, it was in the 50s or something, but quarterback for App, dude, he averaging 6 yards per throw and then 275 yards, like and with a QBR of 71. That's a starting quarterback right there. And I think him playing against North Carolina, going toe to toe with Drake May, It was a great one. It was a great game.
It is, and North Carolina did prove they have a really tough defensive line.
Hmm.
Or, I mean, in game one against South Carolina, that was just an
Hmm.
awful offensive line performance. So there's no
Hmm.
way to tell. Also, random note, Andrew Parker, Arkansas transfer, had 12 tackles for App
Hmm.
State.
And we haven't even talked about the run game from this game.
No.
Like Nate Knoll, 227 yards, total yards.
Yep.
And then we go over to North Carolina and I can't pronounce his name. Marion Hampton,
Yep.
234 rushing yards with an average of 9 yards per carry. That's crazy. That's crazy. And he had a 68-yard run that was unbelievable as well.
Yep, and it's crazy because Hampton's not even that fast. They were
Hmm.
just making a lot of seams for him.
Hmm.
And Nate Noel, as you mentioned, he also went off in that game. So
Hmm.
move down, James Madison beating Virginia 36-35,
Hmm.
and JMU a 12-point fourth quarter comeback. In the last 5 minutes alone, they've ran Jordan McLeod out there in replacement for Todd Centeio, and he showed up 224 pass yards and 1 touchdown. Not a lot of success on the ground, but Kalon Black, who I believe had a slight injury in this game, he had 125 rush yards in week one, only 25 in week two, but they still able to pull it out.
JMU choked this game. They had it in the first quarter, 17-7 in the first quarter. And then they give up a touchdown in the second quarter. Then they go in after halftime and give up 21 points in the third quarter. You can't do that. Like you have to keep your foot on the Tiger's neck and keep going. JMU should have they won this game, but they should have won this with a blowout. They
And
had this game from the beginning.
I want to give credit to Virginia's quarterback because in
Hmm.
week one against Tennessee, they didn't have a quarterback go over 100 yards.
Hmm.
They threw for 377 yards in this game out of nowhere. The kid
Right.
didn't start week one.
Hmm.
So clearly, head coach Elliott over there has been sitting on somebody,
Seriously.
and they'll unleash him to the ACC.
And Virginia, and when you lose the fourth quarter, Brady, it's not going to go good for you. I'm just
No.
telling you, when you give up 12 points in the fourth quarter and you score zero, you're not going to do well, bud. You're not going to do well.
Yep, and there's going to be legit concerns for that JMU secondary if they're
Hmm.
giving up 370 pass yards a
Seriously.
game.
Yeah.
So that'll be something to maybe keep an eye on. Marshall and East Carolina, Marshall rolled in there and really beat the crap out of the Pirates,
Hmm.
31-13. I thought ECU had a respectable team, but
Right.
Marshall just showed up.
Right. Like I thought, I predicted East Carolina would win this game. I thought they were going to win it easily. But Marshall came out and they showed up. I don't think ECU came in there like they were just going to roll in, they're just going to play a Sun Belt team and they're just going to be fine. But when you come in like that and you're not prepared, Marshall's going to run you over. I mean, that's the thing.
That they are the Thundering Herd
Yes,
for a reason.
exactly. They're gonna herd you. They're gonna run and they're gonna herd you.
And if they're going to run it, it's going to be Rasheen Ali.
Hmm.
And now Kalen Laborn's not walking back through that door down there at
No.
Marshall, but Rasheen Ali is a heck of a backup to
Hmm.
have for him, and now he gets full reign
Hmm.
of that offense. 3 touchdowns,
Hmm.
85 rush yards for him.
Hmm.
And then you look at ECU, Mason Garcia's taken over for Holt Nailers and
Hmm.
did not have a great showing. Only 62 pass yards in that game, but they did have a 13-10 lead in that fourth quarter
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
gave it away.
gave it away.
The opening game of Sun Belt Conference play in week two, Old Dominion, they played Louisiana, and Old Dominion 38-31 win. You look at Grant Wilson, a lot of new quarterbacks around the Sun Belt. So I mean, we could
Really. Yeah.
talk about that all we wanted.
It could go like that every year, man. It could go like that.
Grant Wilson 13-19, 247 pass yards and 4 touchdowns. And then maybe one of my favorite players in college football is Jason Henderson because the guy will just hunt you down. He is a Terminator on that
Mhm.
defensive side of the ball. Had over 100 tackles last year, 17 in this game, 2.5 TFLs.
Yes, dude. This game was great for opening day for the Sun Belt Conference play. Louisiana, they're oh man, the rivalry I have with Louisiana. I just wanted Old Dominion. Old Dominion has improved a lot since their first year in the Sun
They
Belt.
absolutely
They
have.
look more confident when they're out there. They look like they can hang with the people from the Sun Belt. Coming over from I forgot what conference they
They
came.
were in the CUSA.
CUSA conference. They come in and they just didn't look good last year. So this year they've come in. They have a great strategy. They have a great running back who rushed for 100 yards. Wicks averaged 6.1 yards per carry. It looks like they just got it down. They got the rhythm down.
They do, and that's even after losing their all-conference wide receiver, Ollie Jennings, to Virginia Tech.
Mhm.
And another thing for Louisiana, storyline-wise, is who's going to take over at running back? Because there wasn't a lot of action there. Obviously, whenever Billy Napier left to go to Florida, he took a lot of that talent with him. So maybe it'll just take time.
Yes.
And then the final game to cover from week 2, Texas State rolled into San Antonio, a sold-out Alamo Dome, and they couldn't quite pull it off. 13-20 was the final score. And TJ Finley, if you recognize that name, played for Auburn and LSU in his time. He had 211 pass yards. And when you look at this game, Texas State, under their new head coach, J.G. Kinney, they like to go fast, and that cost them on the time of possession. They lost that 23 minutes to 37 minutes.
Brady, it's a quarterback driven league. And if you don't have a good quarterback performing that day, you're going to lose. Finley going 16 for 30 with a QBR of 25. That's not going to get it done. That's
Nope.
not going to get it done at all.
It was his first road test in this
Mhm.
conference, but coming from the SEC, can you really use that as an excuse?
Seriously, no.
I don't think so. Frank Harris had a great game, which, I mean, feels like he's been at UTSA since I've been alive. And then Kavorian Barnes, their new running back, he had a great game. But just random storyline, Texas State has 49 new players on that roster. A lot
Yeah.
like Colorado, they are second in the country of new players.
Yep, and they lose their quarterback last year, Lane Hatcher. He went to Ball State, so New Finley had some big roles or big shoes to fill. But it just Bobcats, man. I don't think they're starting off strong, man.
All right, when we come back, we're going to get a quick preview on week 3, and then we're going to throw in a little bit of conference prediction flavor next.
Sweet.
And we are back. We're going to go ahead and get into our week 3 preview here on everything under the Sun Belt. And we'll start out a lot of 11 o'clock kickoffs times. We have Georgia Southern traveling up to Camp Randall Stadium. They're going to take on Wisconsin. And Wisconsin opened as a 15.5-point favorite. They're coming off a loss in week 2 at Washington State. And so the question's going to be if Georgia Southern's pass defense can try and shut down Mordecai
Mm-hmm.
at quarterback, because against UAB, they gave up 385 yards to Zeno. And if they do that again to Wisconsin, when you factor in the running backs that they have, it's not going to be a pretty game.
Right. I mean, Georgia Southern. All right, they got to keep this game close. They can't. They can't come in like Arkansas State. They get it. Defense has to be strong, and offense needs to be able to allow the defense to get breaks and not going out in like a minute. Like the offense needs to slow the game down, run the ball, and just make it a fluid game. Because if you're not, if you're getting the defense back onto the field after a minute after being out there for like 10 minutes, it's not going to go good. I mean,
And
your defense needs those breaks.
now Wisconsin hasn't proven it yet, but they do have the talent to be as balanced as they are. Malusi and Allen at running back. But I think Clay Helton for Georgia Southern, he'll have a good plan. It's just a matter of if they let this game get away early or not. Now, Wake Forest at Old Dominion. Old Dominion coming off of that win in opening conference play. Wake opens as a 14-point favorite, and they're coming off a win against Vandy in week 2.
I think, man, Old Dominion has a chance to make this game close
I also agree.
if they can seriously like come in with that passion and come in and just surprise Wake Forest. I think they can do something, but defense needs to be able to get out there, get to the quarterback. Don't be afraid to rush or blitz or anything, dude. Just go in there.
Mitch Griff's still a new starting quarterback taking over for Sam Hartman, who's obviously elsewhere now. And Old Dominion does get this game at home. I don't know how they always pull it off, but they seem to host an ACC team every year.
You're home. You're defending your home turf. Come in and get the job done.
I think they might have a chance. Not that we want to talk about betting here on Red Wolf Radio, but I would like Old Dominion to cover that 14-point line. Moving down, A&M, they're coming off the beating they've taken in Miami. They're going to play ULM at home. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff time, and Texas A&M opened as a 32-point favorite.
Sheesh. It's going to be an ugly one. I think Texas A&M is going to roll over ULM this game. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. And ULM has proven they cannot pass the ball.
No.
And what does A&M do? They stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matchup nightmare. It might be 38-0 at halftime, unless ULM gets a lucky pick 6 off of Connor Wegman. and I'm not going to get my hopes up for that. An interesting game here. Georgia State at Charlotte. New head coach over at Charlotte, Biff Poggi, I believe is how you pronounce his name. It's something like that.
Pokeball?
I guess. Pokeball. I mean, he's a pretty big dude. So, but he's also, random fact about him, self-made billionaire that just wanted to continue his passion in coaching.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
But
Cool.
Georgia,
That's kind of cool.
it is. He's a great character. Georgia State opens as an 8-point favorite. Charlotte coming off a loss against Maryland in week 2, which they had that game won. I think they were up at some point like 21-3,
Mm-hmm.
and they gave it away. So this game might be a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's an 8-point favorite. I mean, I think Georgia State. I mean, Charlotte is one of those teams that could really surprise you when they come in, and they have a great running game set up.
They do.
Georgia State needs to stop the run. They need to stop their momentum. Georgia State needs to prove why they should be 3-0 in the Sun Belt.
And they do have the quarterback to get that done,
Exactly.
and you have all the confidence in the world in him.
Mhm.
If they can just protect the football, they should be able to cover that
Yeah.
pretty easily.
Georgia State is more of a passing team, I would have to say. But if you can establish the run early to get that pass game set up, Georgia State's going to be golden.
Yep, and I honestly couldn't name who Charlotte's quarterback is off the top of my head because they lost the one they had for the last 2 or 3 years.
I think it'll be it's Jalen Jones.
Jalen Jones. I know they had James Foster, who was an A&M transfer, but I guess he didn't win the job over there.
Yeah.
The game that I like to be the upset of the week is South Alabama. They're taking Carter Bradley, and they're going up to Stillwater, Oklahoma. It's 6 o'clock kick. Oklahoma State opens as a 9-point favorite. They're coming off a pretty meh win over Arizona State. And the fun fact about Oklahoma State is that they used 3 quarterbacks in the week 1 game against UCA, and they're planning on using Alan Bowman to start this game. What do you think it's going to take for South Alabama to go in there and probably pull this upset?
You know what? I don't think they're going to upset.
You don't?
I don't think South Alabama's got this in them. I get it. Oklahoma State didn't play that good against UCA, but I don't know. For South Alabama to go into Oklahoma State and beat them, they're going to have to do a lot. One, don't be afraid to run the ball. We saw last week, South Alabama was like timid to run the ball. Just run it. Just go. That moves the clock and that generates yards because you have that running back. Use them.
They do, but I also feel like it's a lot of confidence building in Carter Bradley because he's a former SEC quarterback. I think he's been at South Alabama for this is his 3rd year now. And just trying to get him out on a high note, but he hasn't really proven that he can do that yet. They're going to need perfection from him.
I mean, he's only only passed for 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, you got to get the ball down the field. You are getting the ball down the field. You can't end it on a field goal. You have to get the ball in the end zone.
Yep, and I do like Alan Bowman at quarterback. I've seen a lot of people think Oklahoma State is the sleeper pick in the Big 12 conference.
Yes.
Alan Bowman, I believe, is from Texas Tech.
Big dude, 6'4", 209. That's a big dude. Like that's gonna take, and that's the other thing. South Alabama has to be able to contain the quarterback in the pocket, try and get to him, but you also have to bring him down. Like you have to, when you hit him, you gotta take him down.
Yeah, he's not an incredible runner, but he's not a guy that I would want to have to find out in space,
It's
unless
gonna-
it's by Yam Banks' standards, because I mean, it sounds like he's gonna hit Alan Bowman.
Right.
All right, UL Lafayette, we're going old school,
Mhm.
and they're going to UAB. It's a 6 o'clock kick. The game opened at UAB -1, but it's up to UAB -2.5 now.
Now this is the game I see as an upset. I dislike the Cajuns. I dislike them. I don't hate them. I dislike them.
I'd like to hear the origin story behind that.
We'll get to that next
Okay.
episode. We don't have time for that. I think ULM can come in against UAB and make some noise. I think UL or Lafayette's got the defense and they got the run game. Once you get that started, I'm telling you, when you get the run game started, you're golden. Because then that makes the defense question, hey, are they gonna run or are they gonna pass it? So they're timid to what defense they want to do. Do we want to blitz?
Right.
Do we want to go back in zone?
Because Ben Wooldridge is not what Levi used to be at quarterback. He is a guy that can run, but if they can't find a running back, we mentioned that's a problem that they might have this season, then this game will probably turn into a shootout, which is something I'd lean for anyway. And so, I mean, you look at that over-under line, it's set at 58. I'd go over. I'd go
Yeah,
over that.
go over. If you hit the under, I'm sorry, man. Come on, just
That would mean they stopped UAB quarterback Zeno a lot after he threw for almost 400 yards a week
hmm
ago, as mentioned. And then the only Sun Belt Conference game of the week over on the NFL Network at 6 o'clock.
really.
Yep. James Madison, they're going to be traveling down to Troy, Alabama. James Madison 2-0, Troy 1-1. And the line was even when it opened, but Troy has jumped up to a 2.5 point favorite.
hmm
Jordan McLeod at James Madison, he's been smart as their new quarterback there, and that's going to need to continue because Troy's notable for having a stout defense. They
hmm
don't have Carlton Marshall anymore, but they still really have a hectic defensive line.
JMU. I mean, people are saying they are the people's champions last year in the Sun Belt. So, and then you're playing the actual champions of the Sun Belt, the Troy Trojans. So, if I think JMU can get the job done, especially what Troy did again last week. I think James Madison can make some
It'll be a game I try to pay attention to while I'm sitting in Centennial Bank Stadium on
noise.
Saturday.
Yeah.
All right, so our debate section of this first inaugural, insert any word you want. We're going to do the Sun Belt Championship prediction. And so we can talk about what all this is going to mean for Arkansas State in the end, but you want to go ahead and start on the East
Yes.
with who you think is going to
I think
make the championship.
it's hard. This is a hard pick
It
because
is, the East is full of, I believe, 6 out of the 7 teams
yes,
can win it.
I think James Madison's going to win the East. Reason being, last year they come in first year in the Sun Belt, and they're already making noise as the top dog in the East. So I think JMU could come in there and beat and win the East hands down, 100%. Especially when you have a stout defense and when you have a big time quarterback that knows what he's doing in the pocket. He's got a pocket presence. When you have that, you're gonna win. You're gonna win some ball games.
It does. I don't think he's as good, McLeod is, as Todd Centeio. They're going to have to overcome that, but they do still have the weapons. They did lose a lot. They lost a lot last year, but their defense brought back just as much.
Mm-hmm.
I have App State coming out of the East, and it's for just offense alone. If Aguilar can be the quarterback that they want him to be, after showing what he could do against North Carolina, the offense is going to hammer some Sun Belt defenses, and there's going to be a lot of high-scoring games because that East Division really does embody the Fun Belt.
Man, I'm so glad Arkansas State's not in the East. App State, what they can't do and what they did last year, they started off hot. Like they started off great. They had college game day calling them everything.
That's
This
right.
year, they have to capitalize on the small wins. The small games that you play, you have to dominate against, and that's what they struggled against last year.
And who was the guest picker when they did that last year? I think it was Luke Combs. I completely forgot that they had game day there.
Yeah, it was Luke Combs, or it was some country singer. I'm
It
not.
was, I think it was him.
Yeah.
We'll move over to the West and
Mhm.
talk about country singers on our own time, I guess. I have Texas State under first year head coach J.G. Kinney, and it's another reason behind offense. Nothing but offense. I think he has enough to get it done. They've replaced so many pieces, as is Deion Sanders with Colorado. I think it's going to be one of those really tough dog eat dog divisions in college football, and I think that they're just going to come out of that dog pile on top.
Man, I that is a great pick, but the way that Finley has started off for the Bobcats, it's questionable because
At
again,
best,
it's a quarterback driven league, and when you don't have a quarterback, I don't know what you're gonna do, and you're not gonna. I don't think you're gonna survive. But Texas State, it's gonna be hard from first. You said first year quarter or first year coach. There's a lot of firsts out there for them, and it's gonna be
at
really
least 50 of
50 of
them.
them. It's gonna be difficult for them if they pull that off. That would be crazy. But I actually have Troy. I know it's like
That's the team I wanted to
it's
pick.
the it's the dumb pick, but I think Troy has a grasp on the West, and they have been for a couple of years now, and I think they will continue as long as.
So basically, you're saying we're going to get a preview of the championship game this
Mhm.
Saturday when
Yes,
they play each other.
yes. So I think whoever, I mean, it's only week 3. JMU and Troy. This game is going to be interesting. Watch it closely, and whoever wins this game, I think it's a little snippet of who's going to win the Sun Belt this year. I think that's my bold. That's my prediction. It might not be it's a hot take, but I think JMU and Troy are going to butt heads this year, and I think they're going to go at it for the Sun Belt
You know,
title.
I think Texas State might be a little bit of a hotter take than saying Troy
Mhm.
can do it because Troy has at least an established quarterback
Mhm.
and Gunnar Watson. I mean, you look
Mhm.
at other teams in the West that I think could get it done. South Alabama might be one that can get in
Mhm.
there if Carter Bradley can start performing. They do draw when you look at the East slate, Marshall and JMU from the East, so not an
Mhm.
easy get out there. And then you mentioned Troy as your pick. I really like Kamani Vidal
Mhm.
at running back, and then they have a really easy schedule
Mhm.
in the Sun Belt
Yes.
minus a random game at
Yeah, I mean,
Army.
let's be completely honest. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but the West compared to the East is a lot more dominant. I mean,
It just is.
it just is. You have Georgia State, James Madison, Marshall, App State, Coastal. Those five right there, they can easily go back and
I
forth.
don't know. I think Georgia Southern can be in that conversation
Georgia
too.
Southern can be in that conversation as well. I mean, all these teams in here are very competitive. But when you look at the West, it's like it's Troy, whoever's the next person, and then it's the rest.
Yep, and that's why I'm saying it could take one loss by
Hmm.
one of those top dogs, and then it's just a fist fight for who can get out of there, and then probably lose in the conference championship.
Hmm.
So I guess everything under the Sun Belt has set, and the moon is rising, and it's not a blue moon because the week 3 slate not the greatest out there. College game day going to watch Dion probably splatter Colorado State's guts on the walls
Hmm.
over in Boulder, especially after their head coach went out and said some stuff to Dion.
Colorado State, Colorado State's head coach. He just opened a battle that he doesn't want to finish. I mean, it's gonna be a bloodbath. Deion Sanders is that dog and can't lose this game. I can't believe game day moved from Mizzou, K State to this game. That's interesting.
I don't know. I feel like there's some even better ones than that.
Yeah,
West
like
Virginia Pitt is the one
West
that I
Virginia.
look at,
Mm-hmm.
especially as a really
Right.
hardcore rivalry.
And plus, I mean, I would rather go see Colorado versus Oregon the next week,
Right.
or even the next
Next
week
week
after
they
that
go to
when they
USC.
play USC. Like, why? I guess they see this as a rivalry in quotes, but I don't see.
It
Colorado.
won't be on Saturday.
No, this one is going to be like 52-7.
You know what we call this? TV promo.
TV,
Get
yes.
Dion that attention.
Yeah, give him the attention he wants.
All right, that's going to wrap it up here on Everything Under the Sun Belt. I'm Brady Michael,
And I'm Easton John.
and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.